All right, recording in progress. Cool. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord, for giving us the time to come together today, for giving us this opportunity to uh, to share some of the stuff that is going on that I can have something of value to share with the rest of the guys in the class and rest of the people in the class. Excuse me. And we just pray, Lord, that you would open our hearts and our minds and our spirits, Holy Spirit. You would have us to receive from this class today and from the conference. Pray for all of the participants in our class, Lord, that you would just bless them. They would walk away from this conference feeling enriched and empowered, exhausted maybe, but enriched and empowered in their craft. Lord, I pray especially today for Renee, and I pray, Lord, that you would help Renee with the challenges she's facing with the memoir that she's working on. It seems that she's really struggling with how to deliver that memoir. And I just pray, Holy Spirit, that you would open her heart and her spirit, her mind, and give her the direction that she needs so she feels comfortable and at peace with how to present her story. So Lord, we just put all this in your hands. We ask for your guidance and direction. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Okay. Monica, good morning. How are you? So this is session 5. We are, again, looking at some of the work that John Olson put together that presented at ACFW in 2008, which I think was St. Louis. And Olson's seminar, Writing in the Shadows, had 4 basic elements. It was writing the big idea, writing big characters, writing in the shadows, and writing with desire. And today we're going to take a look at that last one, writing with desire. And this is the section. I mean, all of his stuff was really good. I hope you got some stuff out of it. I thought it was really good. This stuff was just blew my mind when I looked at it for the second time. It was like, how can I have ignored this since 2008? But it was revolutionary to me. It's just like, oh, yeah, why didn't I ever think of it? So I hope it has the same kind of an impact for you that it had for me. So fiction starts and ends with desire. The desire of our hero is the most important element of story. But first of all, we need to care about the hero. As we saw in the hero's journey and plot skeleton, effective writers create heroes who are admirable, characters the readers can identify with and care about. If we don't care about the hero, we're not going to care about his desires. So the stronger the desire, the stronger the story. The stronger the conflict that those desires bring up, the stronger the story. And the more universal those desires are, the stronger the story. Now, just an aside, once your point of view character gets what he or she wants, whatever that goal is, what that treasure, once they get that and they get back, then really, once he achieves his desire, that the story is over. You wrap it up, but that's the crux of it. That's where the goal, the end point. So the 2 most important things to know when you're plotting your book are, what does the hero want? And what's the conflict? What's preventing your hero from getting what she wants, your heroine? What's preventing her? What's standing in the way? What's keeping her from getting what she wants? And the 2 most important things to know when you're writing a scene is, what does your hero want, or your character? And what's the conflict? Remember, we said this a few times, I think, during the day, during the weekend, that conflict is critical. Tension on every page. Tension on every page. And it's the conflict that helps your character to change. And as we said many times, your protagonist is the person who will change the most in the story. So the main desire of your hero defines your book, right? And the hero's main desire is another name for the goal that we saw in Plot Skeleton. See, all this stuff is similar. It all sort of follows the same vein. So the main desire of your hero defines the book. The only thing that's more important than the desire of your hero, what your hero wants, the only thing more important than what your hero wants is what your reader wants. The only thing more important than what your hero wants is what your reader wants. What does your reader want? A story isn't about what happens to your characters. It's about what happens to your readers. Your reader is the most important character in your story. Gave me chills when I read it the first time. Think about it. Think about it. John Olson said this. He said, coming to this realization of the reader's primacy, that's when my writing took off. As writers, we need to stop replicating the reality that we thought we saw in our minds when we were writing it. The story is what the reader experiences while reading the story. It's the reader's journey that's important, not the hero's journey, not your journey, not my journey. It's the reader's journey that's important. When you write a scene, think, what does the reader want? Give them reasons that they want to continue to turn the page. Now, as writers, we want to really work hard not to give them what they want, but we need to think about what they want, and we need to be, we need to function thinking about what the reader wants and how the primacy of it. Okay, so here's how I want to take a detour from Olson's stuff, because I found it compelling. Those 2 points. A story isn't about what happens to your characters. It's about what happens to your readers. And your reader is the most important character in your story. Later on, we're going to be talking about the psychology of the hero. And Olson comes back to the same theme in a little different way. He said, the book is not about the hero. The book is about the reader. And the readers will become the hero as they read the story. Now, think about it. And I've been thinking about it ever since I got back into this stuff. Have you taken your reader into consideration? When you're writing the story you're writing right now, is it the hero's journey? Is it your journey? Or is it the reader's journey? All right, as you're building your plot, the plot you thought up and planned, is it your plot? Built on what you believe the readers want? Or are you creating characters that are you reflecting readers? I find it fascinating. I really find this an elemental question. And as I said, it's not one that I considered at any point in writing the 6 books that I've had published, or the ones that I haven't had published. The big stumbling block, of course, is how do we know what our readers want? Well, how do I know what my readers want? I thought about this, and I don't know if you can recall back somewhere in one of the other sessions, I mentioned about Nancy Rue and how she gets a pad of paper and she interviews her characters. She sits down and says, well, Joe, tell me about yourself. What was your childhood like? Where do you live? And ask, and then listen in your spirit and hear what your character is saying to you. I believe that happens. I don't think I'm crazy. I believe that happens. I've done it myself, and it works. But I think what we really need to take a look at is, would Nancy Rue interview her reader and write down their responses? So Larry, why did you buy the book? What are you looking for? What is your hope as you open the book and get into the story? What is it that you want to see? What do you want to get out of it? I've never done that. I've never done that. Thinking about the reader. What do you want to get out of it? And then another thought came back to me. I'm a gardener. I think you've gotten it so far. I'm a gardener. I plant a seed, I water it a little bit. That seed is the plot. Water it a little bit, the characters, let the sun shine on it. I see how it grows. But now with this revelation, I've got to become a gardener to the third power, a gardener cubed. I came up with this. Marianne, you were in that session with ACFW Northeast. I have to become a gardener cubed. Not only do I need to master plot and maneuver characters, but I also need to manage readers. I need to manage their needs and their expectations. Wow. Now I thought I was, this job is tough enough as it is, trying to figure out what the readers are going to want. But it's so critical. It's so important. It's so obvious when he mentions it. The story is about your readers. It's how your readers respond to it. It's what they're feeling and what they're going through. It's the story that they see, the movie that they see in their minds as they're reading your book, as they're going through the chapters, and they grab it and they go to the next one because they're worried about what happens to Joe next. It's what's going on in there. Well, I got to tell you, I haven't figured this out yet. I think it's going to take a while, but I did stumble across something that I think can be a help to us. A while ago, this was before I started working on Empires of Armageddon on the second series. I read a blog on Jane Friedman's blog. She writes, I'll send you the blog address, the main blog address. Unfortunately, I've not been able to find the blog that I read. I'm going to keep on looking for it. But I read a blog on her blog about tools to develop reader retention. And one of the tips, there are a number of tips that she had in there. I think it was a guest blog. Somebody else wrote it. But one of the tips they had in there was to offer in your book itself, physically, something special and unique to your readers who request it. At the end of each of my books, I have a section called Author's Notes. A lot of what's in my books is real stuff. Charles Spurgeon was in my books. The Edward Elgar was in my books. The Dorabella Cipher was in my books. The Joint Special Operations Command is in my books. These are all real things, and I use them, and I use and I try to keep those real things as real and true to them as possible within the realm of the story. Sometimes I can squeeze them a little bit, mess them around a little bit, but they're real, and I want to present them as real. So at the end of the book, in the author's notes, I go back to these real things. I try to remember as many of them as there are, and I give the reader more detail about what that is. The Vilna Gaon was a real guy. But for the Empires of Armageddon series, what I did was at the beginning of each of the author's notes, before I started the author's notes, I gave a special offer to readers who had gotten that far. One of the offers was to share with the readers a monthly newsletter that selected one of those items in the author's notes and expanded it, made a deep dive into it. I've sent out at least a year's worth now, I think. And I just pick one at random. One of the things in the books that was the Herva Synagogue in Jerusalem that is blown up. And I gave the readers the history of the Herva Synagogue and a lot of I gave them the history of the Vilna Gaon and a lot with photos and illustrations and stuff that they can visualize. And that's been really good. I've had a lot of good responses to that. In the first book of the series, Ishmael Covenant, the second offer I made was a fuller history, a deeper dive with photos of one of the locales in the book. And it's a really funky and unique restaurant in Ankara, Turkey. And it's there. It's called the Gramophone Cafe. It's all of the stuff all over the cafe. It's all about records and radios and phonographs and stuff from the past. Even their menu is given on vinyl records. It's glued to a vinyl record. And so I gave them a lot of more detail about the Gramophone Cafe. And I've never been there. I've never been to Ankara, but I use Google Earth. And in using Google Earth, you can go down the street that the Gramophone Cafe is on, and you can swing the thing around. And I went through I went through it. I found somebody who did a video going through the cafe. So I offered them that. And I also made in the offer that I would give them 2 recipes from some of the favorite dishes that are served at the Gramophone Cafe. That didn't go over real big. I had 2 requests on all this time for the recipes from the Gramophone Cafe. And I thought, now bear with me a minute. Most readers are women, right? I mean, even for stuff like mine, I think most of my readers are women. I thought, oh, recipes, okay, that should be great. Nah, didn't work. What really worked is when I offered readers of each of the second and the third novels, Persian Betrayal and Ottoman Dominion, I offered them, in addition to the monthly newsletter, exclusive access to one of 2 short stories that I wrote specifically for them. The first short story was called The Gowan's Revenge, and it was an offshoot of the prologue from book 1 of the Gowan story. And the second short story was called Under the Radar, which was the backstory of a character who's only known as the man in the Panama hat in the book. And he is the head of an assassination bureau. And so that was great. I've had a lot of responses. People wanted those short stories. So in order to get them, they've got to send me an email. And I get their email. I capture their email. I've added more than 10% to my mailing list by people responding. And I haven't had a lot. My mailing list is about 1,100 people. And so I've added 110, 120 people just from people sending me a request for this special offer. If I can give you an aside, if you make an offer like that, make sure you write the story before the book goes out. Because I can tell you, I had requests for the short stories before I wrote the short stories. And that puts you under a lot of pressure. But I did. I got them done, and they're pretty good. I really like. I'd never written short stories before. I didn't realize how long it takes, how much effort it puts into a short story. It almost takes as much effort as writing a novel, because the novel's longer and it gives that. But you have to have the same things. You have to have your plot skeleton. You have to have your character arcs. You have to have all the same stuff you have in a novel. But I got there. I did it. The cool thing is, ever since I started this, I've been engaged in a lot of one-on-one email conversations with my readers I'd never done before. And I have corresponded now with readers in the Netherlands, in New Zealand, in Australia, in Canada. And just recently, I started corresponding with a grandfather of 8 in South Africa, who lives in a town called Polokwane in Limpopo province. He's in the jewelry business. He and his wife travel all around the world. And in fact, Isaac is praying for me right now that things would go well in this writing conference. You get to know these people. I'll call him my friend in the Netherlands. Just tell me about his mother lives not far from them. They take care of him. He and his sister, they ride their bikes over to see her every day and take care of her. That part is really cool. It's a lot of fun. You really get connected to the people that way. And just this past Wednesday, my wife and I had breakfast with a reader, a man I went to high school with 50 years ago. His brother read the book, I'm not sure which one, and gave it to his brother and said, Jerry, you would like this. Well, Jerry's read all 6 of my books, and I've been in correspondence with Jerry for a while. Well, Jerry and his wife came up to Danbury, Connecticut. They live in Florida. They came to Danbury, Connecticut to go to a funeral. Jerry sends me an email. Would you like to go to breakfast? I said, sure, of course. So I spent, here's a guy that we were in the same class. I didn't know him from anybody. I probably passed him in the hallways 1,000 times. And it's the first time I really had a conversation with him. But we went to high school 50 years ago. Northeast Catholic High School in Philadelphia. But Wednesday, I got to spend hours with him getting to know more about him and his family. My point is, what I've decided to do, and what appears to me now to be an essential thing, is I'm going to ask each of my readers who receive this monthly newsletter and any of the others that I get in touch with to send me a photo of themselves. And I'm going to start putting their pictures up right in front of me as I'm writing. And then I'm going to start asking them questions. I'm going to interview them and try to get to know them even better, but ask and interview them about their desires. So Isaac, why did you buy the books? What were you looking for when you read them? What did you like about them? What resonated with you? What didn't you like about them? What would you like to see if I were to write something else? Whoa, what a revolutionary thought. My goal is, if I write any more books, and I'll be 75 in January, so I'm thinking about retiring. I'm really thinking about, like, maybe I've had enough. But if I do write any more books, my perspective on who I'm writing about and who I'm writing for is going to change a lot. I'm not writing these books anymore for me. I mean, that was me. I sit there and write my story. I feel good about it and all this stuff. And the characters are involved. I can't do that anymore because the book's not about me. It's not about the characters. It's about the reader. And I think that's really true. I think it resonates so deeply with me because the way I see my books as I write them, the movies that are running in my mind are the same movies, or hopefully the same movies that are running in the mind of the reader. So we're connected in a way, in a sense, that we're sharing this experience, right? We've talked about experience. We want to give our readers an experience, but we're sharing this experience as the author and the reader. We are in the midst of that same experience, kind of mystical. I don't want to get, creepy on you, but it's especially if we're talking about books that are written from a faith-based perspective and people who believe in the same things, that God is active, that prayer does matter. And you begin to write about, and you get people in this who are in the same spirit. There's something going on there, I'm sharing with these folks what the underlying theme of Empires of Armageddon is the spiritual warfare that we all wrestle with every day. But a lot of times we don't know it, and we don't understand that the dynamic of that spiritual warfare doesn't play out just here on earth, but it's having an impact on that battle in the heavenly realms between God and the forces of evil that are arrayed against him in heaven. I think it was Mary Ann, you were talking about the first heaven, second heaven, third heaven, and there's a realm in heaven where God is facing off against these forces of evil that are arrayed against him. What we do here on earth and somehow has an impact on what's going on up there. That's the theme of the series. That's one of the themes of the series. If I'm delivering that theme and I have readers who are buying into it and they're right into it, there's a connection. There's a connection there, maybe not in the physical, maybe it's not mind travel, but there's a connection in the spiritual realm where they're picking up on what I'm trying to share with them that I've found in scripture, what I found in my Bible that has meant something to me. I'm going way off my notes here, but that's okay. This to me is precious. It's precious. It's critical. I've got to change the way I do my work, the way I do my job. And as I said, I'm not quite sure how this is all going to work out, but I know that this desire for an increased intimacy with my readers is going to impact my writing in a dramatic way, just as obviously it impacted John Olson in a dramatic way. I'm not quite sure how. I'm not quite sure if I'll be effective at it. If it's going to work. I don't know, but I know I'm going to try. because I'm going to stop writing for me if I can do that. Obviously, there's part of it. You're never going to give that up, but I'm going to stop writing for me and I'm going to try to start writing for them, for you, for those people who might pick up my books and get interested in them. I want to be able, just like I've talked to you this weekend about, I want you to come out of this conference with what you came in looking for. I want you to feel satisfied. I want to feel the same thing about the readers. The readers come out of the book saying, yeah, that's great. That was a great story. God bless Jerry. He's read all 6 of the books. He read one and he went and got the rest of them. So it must have been, something must have resonated with him. I want to have the same kind of impact and the same relationship with all of my readers. As I mentioned, when I send out the stuff to you, the notes and the visuals and stuff, I'll make sure you get Jane Friedman's blog link. And if I can find it, I look for it, but if I can find it, I'll make sure you get the link to that post about reader retention. It was really good stuff. There's more to it too, but that's what's one that resonated with me. And I hope you don't mind me getting excited about stuff. Okay, so that's the end of the detour. So we'll go back to writing with desire. Also says that we should write for 3 different kinds of readers. We should write for the dumb reader, the reader who believes everything you tell them. We should write for the average reader, the one who tries to figure out things for themselves. And we should write for the smart reader, the reader who takes their cues from what's going on in the story, their knowledge of the story, and they try to get 3 or 4 jumps ahead of you. Sometimes he says he makes the dumb reader right. Sometimes he'll make the average reader right. Sometimes he'll make the smart reader right. But what he wants to really do is he wants to fool 2/3 of the audience all the time. He wants to have his readers dangling, get the hook into them, get them dangling. What's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? And the time to think of the reader, there's several times when you want to think of the reader before you even get started, before you start building your plot, before you start imagining your characters. But in this scenario, also saying the time to think about the reader is right at the beginning of a scene, just as you're getting ready to craft that scene. What is going to happen? And this question, what is going to happen, is not the plot. The question is, what is going to happen to your reader in this scene? Why is my reader going to care about this scene? That's the critical, pivotal question. There are thousands of answers to that. The question is, the important thing is, why is this scene important to my readers? Why is he going to care about the scene? And if the reader doesn't care about the scene, get rid of it. It doesn't belong there. I have a scene in the first book of Empires of Armageddon series, Ishmael Covenant. Brian Mullaney is taking Ambassador Cleveland from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem when they're attacked on Highway 1 in Israel. Their car is forced off the road. It flips over several times, crashes. There's a gun battle. The bad guys that are chasing them all jump out of the vehicles. There's a gun battle going on. It's all interesting stuff. A lot of action, a lot of stuff going on. But my reader is not going to care at all about what's going on in the action if they don't care about the characters. If they don't care about Brian Mullaney and Ambassador Cleveland as people, they're not going to care about what's going on in this. It may be the best gun battle scene they've ever read, but they're not going to be connected to it. The reader cares about the scene not only because it moves the plot along, but because they want to see what happens to the character, because that character means something to them, because they're invested in that character, because they not only they empathize with that character, but they're connected with that character. If you write compelling characters that grab the reader's attention and grabs their heart and their spirit, they're in that character. That's why they care about that scene. Remember, events move the story, but characters grow and change. We got that from the plot skeleton. characters grow and change, and your reader is going to grow and change, hopefully by what your character experiences and the reader experiences. So why is my reader going to care about this scene with Brian Mullaney and Ambassador Cleveland? Maybe they care because they care about, they want to see that Mullaney and the ambassador escape from the bad guys. Maybe they're caring. We look at others. Maybe there's a romance going on. They care about whether that romance is going to develop. They care about whether Mullaney will ever reconcile and somehow with his family. They care. So how do we know what the readers want? What are there ways that we can gauge what the readers want? Well, readers want the same things as the genres that are in the bookstore. The readers want romance. They want to be loved and they want to love. Readers want mystery in their lives. Readers have an innate sense that things make sense. They want to solve the puzzle. If they're faced with a mystery, they want to figure out what happened and how does this go together. Readers, they want action and adventure because we want to be out in the front lines. We want adventure in our lives. No matter how housebound we are through COVID, we want adventure in our lives. Even horror. Readers they want to feel scared. They want to have that sense. Oh, I'm not a big horror fan. I don't like to watch horror movies so much because they're so grisly and bloody and all that. But there's some that are just scary. And you watch it and he's like, oh God, and there's something about that reaction that is that's very human and has a place in our psyche someplace. Readers want to know about transcendence. It's a search for what's greater than them. That's why science fiction and fantasy is popular. That we were designed not just for this world, but for something beyond this, which is what gives us an opportunity to write to that longing, that need, and what the reader wants, and try to connect them to the truth that we know. Even chick lit. Forgive me for using that word, but that's how it's referred to. It's the reader wants to know that they're not alone, that they're connected to other people. So the same genres that are in the bookstore reveal to us the things that readers want out of the books that they read. There are really, and as out of those genres, we can discern that there are really 5 primary drivers of fiction: romance, mystery, thrill, adventure, and transcendence, that longing for something more. Now, even if you're writing a mystery or you're writing science fiction or transcendence, you're writing romance. Mystery needs to be part of that story. Mystery is tied up in all of our plots. Even in a romance, there's mystery. Who's going to get are they going to get together? Is he going to get the girl? Are they going to get to, and you kill the mystery with every detail that you describe. We want to be able to give the reader information. We want to give them the information to let them know that there's information that they don't know. And too much information can take the mystery out. Now, here's where the challenge is. In reading your exercises, there are a lot of detail. And it's good to have detail. It's great to have detail. Detail that expands our understanding what the scene is, what the person is. But I think Olson is right that there are times when we can give too much information. The whole idea of resist the urge to explain, RUE, resist the urge to explain. You don't always have to explain everything. Leave some mystery in your story. Leave some mystery in your characters. Leave as much mystery as your editors are going to let you get away with. Now, I'm talking about desire, writing with desire. A single desire is not enough to carry the reader through the entire story. It's going to get old. It's going to get, they're going to get bored if it's only one desire, one thing that is pushing the story. We need to create staggered arcs of desire, such as mystery number one in your story. Number one is the mystery that's obvious. Somebody gets shot, so you got to find the killer, whatever. Or there's a treasure that needs to be found. How are we going to find it? Whatever that first mystery is. Mystery number two is the mystery that hasn't happened yet. Why is this happening? All of a sudden, there's something else comes up. The reader thinks, why is this happening? What's going on here? If you only have mystery number one, the reader's going to get bored. He's going to figure it out. It's not going to engage him enough. We need to have different drivers at different times of the book. We want to be careful if you come up with drivers. You don't want to be adding new drivers until you give the drivers you have in the book, the mysteries, whatever it is that's going on, give them time to become taught, to become thoroughly worked into your story. And then you can add something new. Don't be dumping all kinds of new stuff on your reader all at once. It's like anything else. Don't do it all at once. Do it over a period of time. But think about your book as a series of desire arcs, a series of, okay, go back to Wizard of Oz. Dorothy gets thrown into Oz. She wants to get home. The little munchkin guys say, go down the yellow brick road, find the wizard. He'll tell you how to get home. Okay, so her desire is to go find the wizard so she can get home. But along the way, other things happen to her. One of them is that she has to get the broom from the witch. So now her desire is to get the broom from the witch. So her ultimate goal is the same, but the desire for other things occurs through the story, and it keeps the story moving. It keeps the reader engaged and involved. So the characters are going to be driven by their desires, and those desires will change throughout the book. And the changes should be staggered, and don't lose sight of what the ultimate desire and the ultimate goal is. Here's an example, and this is where I get into. It's been helpful to me just to use the examples that John Olson provided. So this is an example of an arcs of desire, different arcs of desire. It comes out of his book, Shade. So the setup to this book is that Haley Maniatis is a young grad student with a promising career ahead of her until she's attacked by a monstrous nightmare. Are the doctors right? Does she have paranoid schizophrenia? That's where these nightmares are coming from? Or is the nightmare real? And if it's real, does that mean that the giant homeless man who rescued her, is he real too? So the inciting incident in this story is that Haley Maniatis, this grad student, is saved from a nightmarish apparition by a wild homeless man who seems to be able to read her mind. So Haley's first desire is to escape. Now, the homeless guy who rescues her, we've met this guy before. It's the Melky guy that he talked about before. The Melky guy who can be inside the mind of this other person. That's Haley, that their thoughts join together. Melky's desire, he wants to destroy the Mulo, which is this night apparition that has come against Haley. So there's a lot of stuff going on that we don't know about, but the process is this. The driver one in that story is romance. There's a guy and a girl. Are they going to get together? Driver two is a thriller. Will Haley and Melky escape from this Mulo, this bad guy, with their lives, with their brains intact, with whatever? Driver number three is, oh no, wait a minute. Haley is diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. Is all this stuff imaginary? Is it going on in her mind? Is it real? Are these people that she thinks are real? Is that really going on? Driver number 4 is mystery. Who is this homeless guy? Is he a good guy or a bad guy? Driver number 5 is fantasy. This homeless guy is way cool. You want to see what he can do, but you know he's into Haley's mind. He's occupying her thoughts. She's occupying his thoughts. Driver 6 again is more romance. The chemistry is so thick you can feel it. You can cut it with a knife. Driver number 7 is a thriller. Haley is obviously going out with this other guy. Maybe it's Demulo. I don't know. But as the reader, you're thinking, Haley, why are you going out with that guy? You're crazy. You're stupid. He's the monster. It's not Melky is the monster. He's the monster. Driver 8 is romance again. Yeah, well, Melky rescued her, and they're going to live happily ever after. And then driver 9, and he throws this in there, and I don't know. Driver 9 is a thriller. It's, oh no, they're both monsters. And that's a pretty good twist. If both Melky and Mulo are monsters, and that's a pretty good twist at the end. And then the driver 10 is mystery. Wait a minute. Is he a monster? Is he not a monster? Is Haley imagining that? Is it real? Is it not real? You can tell. All right. From all the examples of stuff that I've used over the last couple of days, you can tell John Olson writes some pretty interesting books. I've tried to get them. They don't have them in my library or on my electronic library resources. And we're probably going to have to go to like Second Sale or Libra, see if I can find some of these books, because I'm curious now about the stories that he writes, because they're a bit strange, a little more unusual than the stuff that I write. Okay, so that gives you some sense about what he's talking about drivers, levels of desire, levels of engagement. So we want to think about, how do we write scenes, create scenes that are ripe with desire? And how are we doing on time? 11:17. What time do we end? 11:45. All right, not too bad. How do we write scenes? I'm talking to that are ripe with desire. We need to know the point of view of the character. We need to know what the point of view character's driving desire is. What's the main conflict? What are the story drivers? What's the central tension in the scene? And what's the purpose of the scene? And the purpose of the scene had better not be feeding the reader information. That's not the purpose of the scene. We need to know where the scene begins and where the scene ends. We need to know why the reader is going to care about this scene. The purpose of the scene is to engage your reader in an experience that they can relate to, that they find compelling. And that connection usually happens with this sense of central conflict. What's the central conflict or tension in the scene? The central tension is the main concern the reader's going to have when reading the scene. And you need to make sure it's clear, that it's critical, that it's the center of the entire scene. What is the thing what is the main concern the reader's going to have when reading that scene? What is that tension that they're going to feel? Part of the tension is that the reader's concern is separate and distinct from the point of view character's desire. Think about this for a minute. The heroine wants the guy. She's engaged in a romance with this guy. The reader knows that that guy is a serial killer. The character's desire is one thing. The reader's desire is another. Don't go near that guy. Okay? So every aspect of a scene, description, mood, tone, the character's emotions, should all be tied into the central tension and be used to enhance that central tension. You find the central point and you want to build your scene. Everything should be around that scene, that tension. That's the center of the world. And it's more here. I'm going to blow your mind here. It's more important for the reader to experience reality than it is for the scene to be real. What? the reality of the story. It's more important for your reader to experience the reality of the story than it is for the scene to be real. We often have to sacrifice reality in order to give our readers the experience of reality. So think about that. The experience of reality in our stories is different than reality, right? My stories are not real. They're thrillers. They're action adventures. I got guys who are in walking around in the caverns underneath the Ankara Citadel with these agents of evil chasing them around. That's not real, but the reality is that in that story, the reader's in that place, and that's the reality they're experiencing. My editors often tell me that in order to read books like mine, you need to be able to suspend your disbelief. It's my responsibility as an author to craft a story that is plausible to the reader, not proven, but plausible. It could happen. My challenge is to create a plausible world that requires my reader to suspend their disbelief that what is going on is real. Normally, they wouldn't believe it, what they're reading. But they need to suspend their sense of disbelief and enter into the real world, this quote, real world that I'm creating for them. Brian Mullaney is taking the box of power into the den of incarnate evil in the bowels of the Citadel. Is that real? What the readers are experiencing is a new reality, the reality of the story world. And in order to experience the reality of the story world, the reader must suspend their sense of disbelief in some aspects of that other reality that they live in every day. Okay? Crazy stuff. So the purpose of a scene is to give the reader an emotional experience. It's to move the story forward. Remember, events move the story and characters grow and change. The purpose of a scene is to help the reader relate to the point of view character. And remember, too much information distances the reader from the character. Too much information kills the mystery. So you need to be selective and careful in the information that you share. Too much information kills the mood, and it can kill the suspense. We're going to step away sort of from a little bit from this writing with desire, because a question came up whether to prologue or not to prologue. Did I mention this earlier in one of the other sessions? I can't recall. Prologues, don't ever use a prologue. They tell you don't ever use a prologue. I've got prologues. Every one of my books has a prologue. Yeah, okay. We don't need to go back into that. You don't want to use a prologue if the reader can't emotionally connect with the scene, if the scene kills the suspense, usually by bringing the villain out of the shadows too early, if it makes the reader confused about who the main character is, or you don't have enough of an exciting start. So we went over that stuff. Another part of writing good scenes is pacing. When Olson was doing his presentation, he used the analogy of water skiing a lot. I've done away with that, but in a sense, he said pacing is like being a water skier being pulled behind a speedboat. It's not the type of boat pulling the reader that makes a thriller. It's the acceleration of the boat. And pacing is like if the boat it always goes the same speed and is always going in a straight line and nothing ever changes. Pacing is changing the speed of the boat, changing the direction of the boat, getting out of the wake, doing some other. You want to do some other things. Don't want it to be boring, but pacing is important to your reader and to keeping your reader engaged, because the reader's going to fall asleep if you never switch the drivers, if you never switch the speed, if you never switch something else in there, if it never turns, if the boat never turns. And sometimes we need to sacrifice faithfulness to our original vision in order to make sure, rather than sacrifice pace and feel. If your original vision is really linear, and it just, you need to be thinking about pace for your readers, that there should be action and rest, action and rest. There should be intensity and peace. Whatever it is that you're writing, there are scenes of high angst and anxiety, and then there's got to be a break at the ice cream shop, whatever it is. Okay, that's pacing, and your pacing needs to be, as I said before, as your story gets closer and closer to its climax, your pacing should increase. In my books, my chapters shrink in size, my scenes shrink in size as my protagonist, my antagonist get closer together, closer and closer in proximity, which is what should happen in your books. They get, your characters and your villain and your hero should get closer and closer in proximity. Things speed up. The world speeds up, the scenes speed up, everything's speeding up. Sometimes we need to sacrifice what we think is the way things should go for pace and feel. We need to make sure we get that pace and feel into the story. And the tighter the point of view of the character, the more the reader is going to experience that ride. In talking about pace, the time it takes a reader to read a passage is inversely proportional to the urgency that the reader feels. If you read it, if there's a sense of urgency, your reader's going to start reading faster. If that pace increases, your reader's going to, their mind's running faster. They're going to, and that's one of the reasons why you want to get your chapters and your scenes tighter and tighter, shorter and shorter, because your reader's mind is going fast. You want your reader's mind going fast. And when it's time for breakneck action, you want it to be breakneck speed. And so the reader should be going through the book at that breakneck speed. One of the ways to do that is the whole idea of a ticking clock. If this doesn't happen by 6 p.m., the world's going to end, right? Some kind of a deadline. You know, if Joe doesn't get this done, then this whole building's going to collapse. If he doesn't get that beam in place by noon, the whole building's going to collapse because they forgot to put it in the first place, whatever it is. But a ticking clock always increases the tension. So just some points to remember. Well-planned scene is better than a well-written one. Your primary goal is to give your reader a great experience. We want to be prepared to sacrifice realism in order to give the reader a realistic experience in that story world. And each scene should be guided by one central underlying tension. Now, in order to maximize that experience for the reader, okay, I want to make sure I've got some stuff I want to finish up with. In order to maximize that experience for a reader, there are 4 things that we can use to maximize that experience. We can use the psychology of the hero. We can use a character with big goals. We can use a unique situation, or we can use a universal hero. And in talking about the psychology of the hero, I mentioned this earlier when we were talking about the reader. Also says the book is not about the hero, the book is about the reader. The readers will become the hero as they read the story. So the psychology of the hero is that the hero's victories are going to be the reader's victories. The hero's failures are going to be the reader's failures. So that's one of the reasons we need to know what the character wants. If we don't know what the character wants, then we don't know how to give it to them. We want to be able to give the character, the reader, experiences where they feel fulfilled. So, a good example. We want to be able to communicate the hero's desires and plans in order for the reader to be able to know how to process the story. There needs to be a visible and understandable progression to the hero's desires and how those desires develop into plans and events. So just like in real life, a book always gets better if the reader has something to look forward to. And like in real life, past or present enjoyment isn't as powerful as future expectation. So providing information about the hero can do exactly the opposite of what you want, what you intend. It will make the character seem flat and inauthentic. The readers will know a hero by what she does, not by what you tell them about her. So in order for the reader to become the hero, you need to show, then we're back to show and tell. You need to show your reader who the character is and what the character is doing, not tell them. It's not about, it's about giving your reader the experience of what the character is going through. And so the reader can live that experience and buy it for themselves. And then they become, and that's when when your reader becomes the most important person, because you want to satisfy their needs. Another way to maximize experience is to have characters with huge goals that are intersecting with a lot of conflict, goals that are intersecting with a particular world that they're in. And it's where those realms of conflict and new world intersect that the book feels bigger and bigger and becomes more and more fun for the reader. So you want to center everything around the character. You're centering your world system, your family dynamic, certain kinds of magic, all the conflict, all these to be centered around that character. As we said earlier, the whole world should be revolving around your central character. Your reader should feel like it's an inevitable world, that's where that character belongs, right in the center of that world. Unique situations. Luke has the plans for the Death Star. Transformers. Shia LaBeouf, the guy who buys the car. When we're talking about universal hero, if Superman didn't have Clark Kent, I can't relate to him. I can relate to Clark Kent. And because I can relate to Clark Kent, I can believe that I can become Superman. We have to be able to relate to our hero. But in order to relate to our hero, we need to be able to believe our hero is like us. And we are like the hero, because that's where the marriage comes in. The hero should be incomplete, just as we are. Don't tie him up or tie her up in a gift wrap box. Make them incomplete. Leave gaps in failures, and don't make them perfect. Please don't make them perfect. Give them failures. Give them areas where they are just dense. That the greatest guy in the world, wonderful to his wife, he's a great friend. He works hard. He's successful. He could be a jerk to his kids, not a bad jerk, but just mind dead, to have a block about what his kids really need, whatever it is. Don't make them perfect. Have your characters do things that are unexpected and unexplained. Make them seem like there's a lot going on below the surface. Your characters should be conflicted and complex. Try to make the characters complex and not stereotyped. And again, I said, your heroes should be flawed, just like we're flawed. And heroes need to embody our ideals as well as our realities. I love having a hero that I can strive to be. Not ideal in every way, but someone who has ideals that are bigger than life that I can aspire to, and that might change people's lives. So we experience human beings by interpreting them. We don't really know them, but we interpret them. If you think about it, you do it all the time. Everybody you meet, as you go down the street, you see somebody interact with a little bit, but your interpreting mind is going on at the same time. It's not judging. And I thought about this, you're not making judgments about people, you're just interpreting what you're experiencing. So what you're experiencing with me now, how much do you know me? What is it that you're left interpreting that's me, and what is it you're left interpreting that's about me? What I say, how I say it, interpreting my expressions, my behavior. We do it all the time. We do it all the time. Your reader's going to do it all the time. I've got a few more minutes before we're done. We got about 10 minutes. Next session, we're going to look at your writing exercises, and we're going to try to address the reasons you came and make sure that you've been satisfied. But as I've sat back and I've thought about, okay, I've been through these conferences. I know what it's like. You get down the last day and you think, now what? Now what? I've gone through all these classes. I've invested all this time. I've sat through all this stuff. My brain is getting fogged. Now what? What am I going to do? I've got a journal or a legal pad crammed with notes, a file bursting with handouts. What am I going to do? And you just went to the conference bookstore and you saw all these books about how to be a great writer, how to market, how to get the internet, how to do this, how to do that. All these great books. Now what? How can I find the elixir of success, what I've been searching for? Well, I've got a professional suggestion for you. Take a nap. Take a break, take a nap, go get some rest, and then come back to it. Maybe it's because I'm an old guy, but I like naps. That's my professional advice. But not too long. Don't take too long nap. Because now is the time to strike. Now's the time to get as much as possible out of what you've been given. What's in your notes, what's in your handouts. Get it into your brain as possible. Or at least get it into a folder on your computer that you can go back and access as often as necessary. If I had done that after the ACFW in 2008, I wouldn't have gone, what, how many, a bunch of you, 12 years, 13 years before I found John Olson again. So here's my suggestion. I would suggest that out of the next 24 hours, you carve out 1 hour. Commit yourself, give yourself that break. Take 1 hour out of the next 24 and do a quick review of everything that you've learned or received or gotten over the last 3 days. And create 3 folders, either 3 folders in your computer, 3 piles of stuff on your desk, whatever it is. And go through that, review it quickly, and take what's the most important things that I've learned? What is the most important nuggets that I've got? And you put those in your 1 week folder. Because you have a 1 week folder, a 2 weeks folder, and a 3 weeks folder. The most important stuff that you've gotten, put in the 1 week folder. And then there's stuff that was interesting. It was pretty good. Put that in your 2 week folder. And all the rest of the stuff, put in your 3 week folder. In order to get the full value out of this conference, promise yourself that over the next 7 days, you will review what's in that 1 week folder. Somehow, go over it, what's in that 1 week folder. Because that's going to be a huge step towards now what? If you go through the 2 weeks folder, okay, that's good. If you go through the 3 weeks folder, then God bless you, you're awesome. But make sure you take the time to review what you believe was the most important things that you got this week. You're mining gold here. And now you're going to have access for 2 months, whenever they put these recordings up, to be able to go back to the tapes of every one of these workshops and continuing sessions in this conference. I think there's 45 workshops or 50 some workshops. Look at the schedule. Find the ones that resonate with you and put those in your 1 week folder. So when you go back to your 1 week folder, you'll have the links or the, oh yeah, I want to take a look at this workshop, and then find a way to look at that. But believe me, if you can do that and go back and give yourself time to review and absorb some of this stuff, it'll stay with you longer. Or at least if you have it in a place where you know it is, you can go back and review it. Because I've gone to too many conferences where I've come home, I'm so tired, I put everything down, and then I forget about it. And there's stuff that's really good, you want to hang on to it. So try to do that some way, get a way to hold on to this stuff. And as far as all the advice you've gotten, such as you've got to read this book, or this is the only way to do a query letter, or whatever it is that people have told you, this is the only way to do this. Forget it. Take a deep breath, relax. It's going to be okay. There are some things that by common sense, wisdom, there are things you have to do. If you're going to submit something to a publisher, figure out how the publisher, go on their website, find out how they want it to be submitted. But there's not only one way to do a query letter, because different publishers may have different styles that they want. There's not only one way to do this or only one way to do that. It's not like you never have a prologue. There are very few rules. So anybody tells you there's only one way to do something, take it with a grain of salt. The number one responsibility of a writer is to write. It's one of the few things that you can control. Every how-to book that's ever been written is worthless if you don't have a powerful story to write and you don't have compelling characters who will make me want to read about them. And if you don't have the skill to create a new world and put that world into words, no book is ever going to make you a good writer. Now, forgive me for being blunt. God does that. God gives some people to be bakers, some people to be moms, some people to be writers, storytellers. If you've never been a storyteller in your life, it's going to be tough for you to become a storyteller now. But there are ways that you can teach yourself and things that you can learn to become a better writer. You become more skilled as a writer, more effective as a writer. Even people who are not gifted as writers can write books, can write good books, and can be effective as writers. They just have to work at it a little harder. I've been blessed. My wife Andrea and I went to a concert in New York City several years ago. It was Joan Baez, the folk singer. She has a beautiful voice. Some of you may be too young to know who she is. Gorgeous voice. And during the concert, she's talking to the audience and stuff. And at one point she says, people always ask me about my voice. And I tell them the gift is from God. My job is maintenance and delivery. We all have different gifts. Our job is maintenance and delivery. You can teach yourself some of the skills that are necessary to be able to maintain your writing and deliver good writing. But you're probably not going to get it out of a book. A book's not going to teach you how to be a good writer. There are some good ones. There are some good. Donald Moss has some books. How to be the breakout writer. I think there's one in the bookstore. It's something about it's like a compilation of all his things. It's about how to write the breakout novel. I think it is a compendium called The Breakout Novelist. That's what it was. That's in the bookstore, and it's reduced price. But Donald Moss is good. As I said, the book on writing by Stephen King, I found that to be fascinating. It was good. But I've come out of conferences with armloads of books, and I bring them home and I put them on the shelf and they stay there. I started reading Stein on writing. It's pretty good, but I never finished it. I couldn't get through the whole thing. So don't overwhelm yourself with stuff that you have to do. I got to read this, I got to read. Figure out what you need to know. Write. And then figure out where your weaknesses are, what you need to do, and then go find some answers. How can I be better at this? Ask God for guidance, discernment, but do it for yourself. We're in this. I think all of us, when we get started, we have these dreams, these daydreams of great success and being a bestseller and having our books turned into movies or whatever it is. I know I did.